Hey everyone, it's Cosmo, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over Epic 7's second limited time summer event, the Order of the Sword and the Lord of Summer. Specifically, how to beat the first 3 of the event bosses on Hell difficulty and maximize the event currency you earn. That way, you can be sure to get all of the rewards in the events exchange, which you're going to want to do because a lot of this stuff is gold. I mean, well, some of it is. And this video is timestamped, so feel free to skip to where you need to, and be sure to like and subscribe if you found any of this helpful or enjoyable and want to support a brand new Space Dog YouTuber. And please leave a comment below if I did miss anything. Now, this event is taking place from August 18th until September 8th of this year, a total of 3 weeks, which is a bit longer than some other events. And of course, no dripping wet bikini-clad summer event would be complete without a new waifu to join you on your long walks on the beach. And I couldn't think of anyone better than the new summertime queen herself. The elf that Sylvanas Windrunner wishes she could be, the ranger with an aim that puts Legolas to shame. I'm talking about none other than Summertime Asaria. That's right folks, she is a limited time summon and will only be available during this event, which ends on September 8th, so get her while you can. Oh, and there's her. So now let's go over some tips and tricks for maximizing the amount of event currency that you'll need to earn for the event exchange, or currencies since there's 3 of them: seashells, coins, and bug ornaments? First, I want to go over enhanced heroes. These are heroes that receive major buffs in combat when used during this event, and there are 2 different categories: lead heroes and side heroes. Lead heroes receive a temporary level 60 boost, are fully awakened, have maxed out skill levels, and receive a 30% boost to both attack and HP. This event's lead heroes are Summertime Asaria, Sirmia, and Alexa. And on a side note, this is a great way to level up certain low-level characters since they already fight at level 60 during these side events, but they earn permanent experience from fighting. So this is great for your low-level heroes who you haven't had enough time or penguins for. Regardless, for all of your heroes, you will still want to equip them with the best gear that you can afford. Now, there's also side heroes, on the other hand, which only receive a 30% boost to their attack and HP, which is still kind of impactful, but I mean, in comparison, side heroes are being treated worse than how Batman treats Robin. And this event's side heroes are Asaria, Chaos Sectax, Chaos Inquisitor, and Zealot Carmine Rose. Second, I want to go over enhanced artifacts. While the enhanced heroes will undoubtedly make the fights easier, the enhanced artifacts will boost the actual amount of event currency you earn. And there are 3 artifacts in total for this event, each acquired through different ways. The first artifact is the official Levulin Beach Volleyball, which can be acquired through the event shop and by completing the story questline. And honestly, you'll want to purchase this and equip it as soon as possible. That way you can start earning enhanced amounts of event currency early on. Now, the second artifact is Star of the Deep Sea, which unfortunately can only be acquired through the limited time event summon for Summertime Asaria. So unless you're blessed by the RNG gods or your mom's wallet, you may not be able to obtain this artifact. Now, the third artifact is Border Coin, which can be acquired through the regular Covenant summon, if I'm not mistaken, so you might already have this artifact in your possession. Now let's move on to talking about the actual boss fights, which just like in the previous event, completing the boss fights on Hell difficulty, or at least the highest difficulty you can manage, will provide you with the greatest amount of event currency per energy point spent, which, if you're a free-to-play doge like me, is a big deal. Now, let's talk about the first boss you'll encounter and how to beat it, which is named Devourer Arahakan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And this boss will drop the seashell currency. Now, let's begin by getting an overview of the boss's skills. Now, passive number 1 is Stance Change, and it has different effects depending on whether the boss's second attack, Corrupt Web, is available. If it is available, the boss will have immunity and damage reduction. If Corrupt Web is not available, then your heroes will be afflicted by a non-removable, cannot buff debuff. Now, passive number 2 is called Crisis Response, and it grants the boss an extra turn and decreases skill cooldown by 3 turns when it's brought below 50% HP for the first time. Now, its third passive is Incubate Venom, which grants the boss increased attack and speed, or increased attack and critical hit chance at the start of his turn. Now, its first actual attack is called Dash, which is a simple single target attack with a 30% chance to stun for 1 turn. Its second attack is Corrupted Web, an AoE attack that decreases your hero's speed for 2 turns and their combat readiness by 25%. It then summons 2 more monsters to fight alongside it. However, this skill can only be used if the boss is alone on the battlefield. So, now that we have a better understanding of the boss's passives and attacks, let's move on to some actual advice. You should know that its second AoE attack is one of the most important mechanics for this fight, and your team comp will largely determine whether you use the first or second strategy that I'm about to show you. First, there's the slow and steady strategy, where you kill one ad and keep the other alive, preventing the boss from using its second AoE attack and thereby allowing you to focus on dealing damage to just the boss. This might be practical if you have strong single target DPS, but the problem with this strategy is that the boss gets stronger and stronger with each turn. You would need some strong sustain to make this strategy work. So you may want to opt for the second strategy, Burst 'em, which is a strategy I finally succeeded with. For this one, you'll want to kill both minions and then trigger the boss's second attack, because while that attack is on cooldown, it is no longer immune to debuffs like decreased defense, and you can set up the boss for some intense burst damage, since it's no longer immune to debuffs. Again, you will then rinse and repeat until the boss is dead, and this will hopefully allow you to kill the boss before its third passive skill becomes overwhelming, the stacking buffs. Now, a few other small tips. First, you cannot cleanse or remove the debuff from the boss's first passive skill. Second, bring heroes with burst capability, especially if you're going for the second strategy. Third, for sustainability, consider using heroes that provide heals instead of shields, since shields are technically considered buffs and they can be blocked by the boss's second attack. And fourth, avoid using light heroes, or they'll probably be killed by this boss very quickly. Now, obviously, you may not be able to form a team that can do all of this, but just make sure you can make the best team you can. Personally, I use the following team comp to beat this first boss: Crow for tankiness and burst damage, Sirmia because she's a lead hero and extra burst damage, Seaside Bayona for AoE damage and debuffs, and lastly Ray for some heals and shields. And that's about it for this boss. Now, let's move on to talking about how to beat the second boss in the summer event, the Juleeve Council, which I admittedly found to be a much easier fight than the first boss. Now, let's start with an overview of this boss's skills. Its first passive, Plague, which essentially causes poison debuffs to spread from one ally to another when a poison hero starts their turn. Passive number 2 is called Black Death, which splits the boss into 3 upon reaching 50% HP. Now, during this time, your heroes will suffer damage every time a clone starts its turn. To end this, you must kill the core clone, which will cause the boss to reappear with 50% HP, regardless of how much damage you did before it split. Its third passive is called Inflict Curse. This passive is triggered when you inflict a debuff on the boss. It grants the boss random buffs for each debuff it has, up to 3, and it dispels all of those debuffs on the boss. Now, its first actual attack is called Spread Disease. The boss attacks twice and inflicts poison each time, while granting increased attack and speed to the boss and an extra attack with the exact same skill. Its second attack is called Group Ambush, and in this case, the boss attacks all enemies, dispelling your hero's buffs and extending the duration of any debuffs on them by 2 turns. The damage dealt is proportional to the number of debuffs on your heroes. Now let's move on to some actual advice, some tips and tricks. First, bring a hero that can cleanse and provide debuff immunity, which will mitigate debuffs from both its first passive skill and its direct attacks. Next, avoid using heroes that inflict debuffs, or you'll end up simply making the boss harder to kill due to its third passive skill. Third, don't rely on heroes that provide buffs, since the second attack dispels buffs on your team. Obviously, you can still use them some of the time, but don't rely on it completely. Fourth, you may want to use heroes with AoE attacks, because when the boss splits into 3, you can more easily burst them all down. Or you can simply get lucky by targeting the right one, and then it will reappear. And again, you may not be able to form a party that can do all of this, but just make sure you can make the best one you can. And for this fight, I personally used the same team comp that I did for the previous fight. Now we'll take a look at how to beat the third oversized bug that you'll be facing in this summer event, Secretary Vera, which is going to be dropping the coin event currency. And we'll start with an overview of its abilities. Its first passive, Mystery of Life, grants a stackable increased attack and speed bonus to the boss when an ad hatches. And when you attack an ad, the combat readiness of the boss increases by 15%. His second passive is called Final Evolution, which grants the caster stackable attack, defense, and speed increases every turn after hatching from a cocoon. His third passive is called Prepare Evolution, which is triggered after being brought below 50% HP. This causes the boss to attack all enemies before transforming into a cocoon. It then summons 2 more adds in the process, and you can also not deal more than 50% of the boss's HP in one attack. In other words, no one-shots. But let's face it, if you can one-shot this boss, you probably don't need this guide. Now, the first actual attack it has is Spew Rock, which attacks 2 random enemies with a 25% chance to stun for 1 turn. Its second attack, Incubate Egg, summons 2 more adds, reduces their skill cooldown, and grants them an extra turn. Now, some general tips and tricks for this fight. First, you will want to simply ignore the adds. Honestly, they're a waste of your time. Focus down the boss because this fight is admittedly pretty straightforward, not very complicated. You may also want to bring Dark Heroes since they will be able to deal extra damage to the cocoon. And you may also want to bring heroes that can incapacitate the adds or make them unable to do anything. For example, Tenebrea allows me to deal AoE damage and put them to sleep or slow them so that they're a lot less of a nuisance. And again, you don't need to be able to form the perfect party that can do all of this, just one that beats the boss. The third and presumably final region for this summer event will be available beginning September 1st and will likely feature at least 1 or more bosses that drop the third and not yet seen event currency, bug ornaments. Still gross. On a final note, regarding all the boss fights, and really for this whole game in general, the recommended CR is no joke. And to make it worse, some bosses have very unfair mechanics. I'm looking at you, Incomplete Fastest, you sick son of a So you'll need to increase your hero strength to have a chance at beating these higher difficulties. But keep in mind, the game is designed in such a way to encourage you to spend either time or money to achieve this, and it intentionally pushes you in the direction of spending money. So don't beat yourself up over not being able to do this boss or that boss at the highest difficulty, and definitely don't spend excessive amounts of real money on this game, because at the end of the day, the rewards are all the same, and the only real winner ends up being Smilegate. Now, that's pretty much it. That's everything. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Your support is always appreciated, especially to all of you who recently subscribed in my first month. It's, I don't know, super exciting. Thank you. And of course, be sure to leave any comments about anything I might have missed or made a mistake on. Until next time, this has been Cosmo. Take care.